And it is my absolute pleasure to now introduce this next panel. Can crypto save the world? And to do this, we're going to invite your moderator, Michelle Abbs, founder of Web3 Equity and friend of Chapman Partnership, to do this. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We just heard backstage that we are the best dressed panel, so you probably think we're going to talk to you about fashion, but we're not, slightly different. So good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here with you all. My name is Michelle Abbs, and I am the founder and CEO of Web3 Equity. We are an educational community to ensure gender equity in Web3, and we do that by onboarding women and engaging male allies. And I have some superheroes on stage with me to talk about, can crypto save the world? So, not only in pursuit of gender equity, but looking at global challenges that crypto is really well suited to address. So as the teacher in me, just to set us up for success, here's what we're gonna do with our time. We're gonna hear some use cases from the folks on stage and how their organizations and the things that they lead are addressing these global challenges. And then we're gonna think a little bit about their approaches to that and then how that might lend itself to the things that you may be building or doing. So without further ado, I want you to meet these superhero panelists. So we have Chris, Clarence, Osho, and Brittany, and I'm gonna let them do a very quick intro so you just know who they are, and then we're gonna dig into the good stuff. So Chris, kick it off for me.
Thank you, Michelle. Hey everyone, Chris Adamo, founder of Flamingo Capital, investor in 70 companies, advisor to many, and then I'm firmly here as a conduit for good for other people. So if you need any help, hit me up. Happy to be a conduit.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Clarence Wooten. My day job, I'm a director and entrepreneur in resident at X, Alphabet's moonshot factory, also known as Google X. But I'm here in a different capacity. I'm here in my role as founder and chairman of Purpose for Profit, which is a DeFi for good DAO, which hopefully I'll get an opportunity to talk a little bit about. But before doing so, it's important for me to do what John did yesterday. Everything I say on this stage today is my own personal opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Google or Alphabet or X. So please don't get me fired.
Hey everyone, my name is Osho. I am a co-founder of dClimate and currently serve as its CEO. We are basically indexing and organizing the world's climate data and putting Earth's climate record on chain, and using this industrial grade data, we're able to build applications that help individuals, businesses, and even sovereign nations measure, monitor, and mitigate their climate risk.
And I'm Brittany from the Stacks Foundation. We support Stacks technology, which makes Bitcoin a more productive asset by adding smart contracts. And as a nonprofit, we support developers and entrepreneurs who are building in the Web3 space.
Amazing. So we have a wide range of really macro challenges that are addressed from the panelists here. So what I want to share with the audience today is around how you're addressing a macro challenge and why crypto or blockchain, overall is best suited to address that. So Osho, can we kick it off for you to start with the work that you are doing with dClimate and Arbol and why that setup and all of the world's climate data being on the blockchain matters so much?
Sure, yeah. So Arbol is another company that I helped co-found, and I'm the chief data scientist there. There, what we do is parametric insurance for climate events. So broadly speaking, parametric insurance is data-driven insurance as opposed to a more traditional insurance coverage where you're filing a claim and waiting for adjusters. So the way the two companies work together is really interesting. A resort, an agribusiness, a power plant can come to Arbol with a weather-related concern, whether that is, it's going to be too hot, it's going to rain too much, things like that. So to walk through a real example, a wind farm may come to us, and renewables are great, but when there's not enough wind speed blowing, there's not enough energy being created. So they'll come to Arbol to hedge specifically the wind speed at their wind farm. All this data lives on dClimate. So dClimate has hyperlocal data about wind speeds at pretty much a global resolution. And so regardless of where you are in the world, we can get a historic read on your wind speeds. All that data is then used by Arbol to structure a policy where a purchaser can get paid out if wind speed is 10, 15, 20, whatever they choose, percent below the 5, 10, 15-year average. So this leads to a really easy way to mitigate climate risk itself, but it has to be powered by data, and objective data at that.
And a lot more efficiency on the back end with the insurance claims as well, right?
Yeah, so the insurance products themselves can be structured as smart contracts, and that's one of the initial reasons we started building everything on chain, because if you imagine this situation, a smart contract is more or less, to oversimplify it, an if-then clause, and so if a certain data event happens, then a payout is triggered. And clients don't have to deal with the claims process. It's very transparent, and they know exactly what they're buying when they're buying it. Our very first products in 2018, we're doing this in an NFT form. So we have long found a lot of value in Ethereum, the smart contract structure, and also in the NFT structure.
Amazing, thank you. And building on that, Brittany, I know the work that you do as Stacks Foundation is really leveraging the power of smart contracts as well, and thinking about access to capital. Can you share a little bit about how you leverage blockchain and crypto to get to that end?
Yeah, well, I think one of the use cases sort of that you pointed out was like transparency. That's why it being built on a blockchain is very important. And we're seeing this at the consumer level as well. So Stacks helps build smart contracts on Bitcoin. So anywhere where Bitcoin is used and accessible is a great place to build. There's an example in El Salvador where most rural communities don't have access to any sort of banking services. So that means any of your financial capital, you either have to travel 2 hours to get to a bank in order to store it there, gain any sort of interest, or get access to any sort of loans. And that's like a really difficult, high friction piece. But instead, since Bitcoin is an accepted currency in El Salvador, being able to actually do that on chain, being able to access financial services like loans or savings, things that we take for granted in the developed world, it's possible now in emerging economies, and it is very transparent. So you don't have to trust a centralized government or worry about like hyperinflation in your local currency. You actually have choice of how, which financial systems you participate in and the tools that you can use. So I think there's some like base cases that are, global that we maybe take for granted, but that transparency is such a key part, and we're really excited about that anywhere Bitcoin is used.
Amazing. And Clarence, kicking it to you now. She teed it up well.
Yeah, I'm going to continue on what Brittany just talked about in terms of transparency. Transparency is critical in a blockchain. But before I do that, how many of you in the audience are familiar with ESG? Okay, it's mostly a corporate term, but what we do at Purpose for Profit is we help bring transparency to ESG on one hand. So ESG by 2025 is going to represent about $53 trillion in global assets under management, which is about 1/3 of global assets under management. Unfortunately, ESG has a transparency and a bit of a credibility problem. So if you look at it like a Venn diagram, on the other side you have DeFi, decentralized finance, which is a tectonic shift in finance. And what is DeFi's strength? DeFi brings transparency and community-led governance to finance. So when you put DeFi together with ESG, you get Purpose for Profit. And what we are is we are the world's first tokenized endowment fund for building a pool of capital that's ever-growing and evergreen for financing community development impact projects that help marginalized communities prosper in place, and climate projects that secure the future of our planet. So how do we execute that in a way that empowers individuals to not only do good for society, but to also do well and earn yield? Well, what we do is we accept contributions of ETH and USDC to the DAO's protocol, which automatically triggers the minting of a new token called Purpose tokens. So when you think about endowment funds, you normally think about universities. You give money to a university endowment fund, you don't get a return, but you get a tax write-off, unless they give you something of equal value. In our case, the same holds true. When you make a contribution to the Purpose for Profit DAO, you receive newly minted Purpose tokens, but you have the option of foregoing those tokens and taking a tax write-off. But if you receive those tokens, that becomes the new currency of the purpose economy. And purpose tokens will ultimately have significant utility for transacting with ESG-minded companies and brands, and purchasing our NFTs, which give governance rights over the DAO. So I don't want to go too far because this is a limited panel, but at a high level, that's what it is. And that could not happen without blockchain technology.
And I do hope people follow up, during lunch or later in the day with you. Especially, we were piggybacking off of the conversation at the end of the day yesterday around, tax implications, and we had folks from Zen Ledger and TaxBit talking about tax loss harvesting and some of the different ways you can do that. So following up with Clarence is a really actionable next step to that. So Chris, I want to pivot to you and thinking about, we've been talking a bit about this at sort of an organizational level, as an individual, as an investor, as a community builder. How do you think about, crypto for good and crypto saving the world?
Yeah, I love it because, as you said, it's transparency. It's access to things that people didn't have access to before, so it's making it more of an even playing field. The old way of doing things is with few, and now it's with many, which I think is so important now that people are just trying it out. And it's happening in the more fun ways with the music and art, but now we're going deeper into real substantive stuff. And my dream for everyone is I think the blockchain should be used for, our ID is your title insurance, getting permits passed, tracking your health data, things that you should own and never be able to lose and keep track of. So I think we're going towards that, but it's a long time to get that civic regulation passed in the government. So hopefully it happens in the next 10, 20 years, in a better kind of long shot manner. But you're seeing it happening in smaller ways now, which I think is very, very, very fruitful.
Amazing. So we have some clarity around the different ways that crypto can save the world, right? Now let's dig into how we actually approach that, right? So how do we think about, Clarence, I'm going to kick it to you right now with, the projects that you are investing in, with purpose for profit. How do you vet those? How do you choose when you think about, that sort of impact fund? And then we'll kick it down the line of, how you think about that with dClimate and with Sachs Foundation, the approach to that decision-making matrix.
No, yeah, again, that is one of the great things about crypto and DAOs. It's all built around communities. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the Purpose for Profit DAO is ultimately governed by NFT holders. It's an NFT-based governance model. So we empower the community to nominate projects that fit in certain ESG verticals, and ultimately we involve the community that way. But the actual execution of those investments happen by the Purpose for Profit Foundation, because we're making investments off-chain. So these are IRL, in real life investments, but all returns come back on-chain and go back into the endowment fund to grow and scale that fund. And a portion of that fund is reserved to support the price of purpose tokens. So that every purpose token that was minted because someone made a contribution to good. They contributed to an endowment fund. That triggers the minting of the tokens. When people stop doing good, the tokens stop existing. The protocol also does some pretty interesting things around its tokenomics. We burn purpose tokens when individuals use them to purchase these impact NFTs. And those impact NFTs give those members governance over the protocol. So,
Another thing then, if you see him in the buffet line for lunch to tag, right, is the tokenomics strategy that he's, talking through. There's many different ways to approach launching a token and how to, sort of create the economy around that, and that's a really great use case. So let's dig into the approach with dClimate, and think about, the weather set of the entire world being on the blockchain, and how do you guys think about the projects that you're taking on and the places that you're implementing this?
Yeah, so, earlier I shared kind of the example of the insurance side. To kind of tell the story fully, dClimate was originally Arbel's IP. It was all the data that we had been indexing and organizing, and we realized one day that this has a ton more social value and enterprise value if it lives outside of Arbel. So that's where we got the idea to turn dClimate into its own decentralized network. Now, Clarence talked about ESG, and that's very exciting for me because one of the things that we look at by having this auditable industrial grade data is we are looking to bring hard metrics to ESG and to climate action. both of which I think are necessary. And unfortunately, these days, there's a lot of greenwashing. And once you have it in a data-driven format, you can prevent a lot of that. But we are a business, so at the end of the day, we do need to make money. And so the way we approach that is, if we leave the base layer of data for free, in decentralized world, we talk a lot about decentralization of technology, but there's also this great aspect of decentralized labor. Data scientists, citizen scientists, researchers from around the world can access our data and build interesting applications with it. Our own initiative is, let's take on the bigger problem of figuring out how industrials use climate data, how they need to use it to meet new reporting requirements, new climate risk disclosures, and build those products, charge money for that. That's your SaaS product, or that's your enterprise software product, and leave the base layer of data for free to really spur innovation in the space as well.
Wow, I love this, playing on this concept of decentralization as the key lever that you're using there, and then of course, obviously still generating revenue with that business approach. And Brittany, I think that decentralization is really well aligned to the way that you all approach your work as well.
Yeah, so at the Stacks Foundation, we provide the technology, but how people use that is up to them. And it does revolve a lot around communities coming together. Coordination is one of the words you hear often about DAOs and blockchains, of how can people do outsized things by coordinating, and especially coordinating capital together. So one of the examples is city coins, which was actually, there's a Miami city coin, and basically what this project does is they said, how do we make changes at the city level of Miami? And they created a new protocol on top of Stacks. And Stacks is unique because there is actually a Bitcoin yield for holding your Stacks. So what they said is like, okay, we're gonna use that yield and give 30% to the city of Miami and 70% back to the individuals who are holding Miami coins. And they've raised millions of dollars that the mayor of Miami has actually accepted and used towards public goods, things like low-income housing, school education programs, because people were able to actually crowdfund this money together and then vote on what they wanted to see happen in partnership with the city. It's just like a very interesting way to think about how you can do things that you maybe couldn't do on your own, but taking it to like a public goods level. And then even on top of that, there were a number of projects like City Packs, which is like an NFT project that is helping fund Web3 education in Miami-Dade County schools. And they're using that by minting NFTs that earn Bitcoin, that's core to the Stacks technology, and using that to put for good. So maybe you buy the NFT because you just believe in this cause, but you know that as long as you're holding that NFT, it is earning for those students. So just new ways to think about philanthropy, public-private partnerships, and so we're really excited that the tech exists. So anything you want to do, stacks.org, you can find ways or grants to do it, but it's really up to the community to figure out what problems they want to solve.
I love this, and I think the title of this panel is quite hefty, right? Can crypto save the world? And I think sometimes people think about crypto for good in this sort of philanthropic or charity lens only. But I think what we've heard today is, whether it's through an education example, an individual investor community builder, or ESG endowment, sort of climate, data set, or access to capital, right? This crypto for good has multiple meanings and multiple layers. This isn't just about charity donation. Actually, there's an ROI, there's revenue, there's public-private partnerships that are built into all of this. So encourage you all to find us, during lunch or afterwards, to think about how that looks in your world. So thank you for joining us today and leaving and imparting the wisdom. And now we're going to take our capes and head off the stage to save the world. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and go get lunch.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.